What does it mean to have childlike faith? Let's find out. Hey everyone, I'm Colin, the resident nerd and Bible scholar here at the Bible Uncut and Unfiltered. And that phrase, childlike faith, comes from one verse in particular, which is Matthew 18:3, where Jesus says, "Truly I say to you, except you go backwards and become like little children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." Now, before I go any further into the video, I would love to hear from you all in the comments. How did you hear this verse preached in church? I know when I was growing up, it was always this idea of simple, childlike faith that doesn't ask too many questions, doesn't get bogged down in what could seem like contradictions or problems. It just trusts that the Bible says it, that settles it, I believe it sort of faith. But that's not at all what Jesus meant with this passage. No one has ever debunked that interpretation of the passage faster than Rachel Held Evans. She once said, "Those who say having a childlike faith means not asking questions haven't met too many children." She's got a point. If you have ever been around kids, especially really young ones, they ask a lot of questions. And so maybe Jesus is actually encouraging us to be more like that, to lean into those questions. I think part of it, too, if we're looking at the context of the passage, where there's a lot of conflict amongst his followers of who's going to be the greatest, I think his point is that children don't care about that kind of thing. They're not worried about getting a promotion at work. They're not striving for all this position and honor that so many of us adults do. Children are more trusting than most adults are. They realize that they are naturally dependent on other people. And they're kind of humble in that way. They know they need the care of others, and so they're willing to give it to others as well. I even heard someone recently, I think it was at Theology Beer Camp this last year, so if any of you listening were there and can remember who said this, drop a comment and I will correct my notes if you can remember, because unfortunately I did not cite it. But it's been pointed out that children play a lot. What if part of what Jesus meant was that our faith needs to be playful? Can religion play? I mean, in play, everyone is welcome to share both attention and intention. The purpose of belief is to sustain and spur on our progress in life. But you have to feel safe to play. You don't just play around when you think your life is in danger or when you feel threatened by something. You only play when you feel like you're in a safe environment. In a lot of ways, the worst thing we ever did was grow up. Jesus said to approach your beliefs like children. Children play without having to have a winner in everything. Sometimes they just play for the sake of it. And I wonder how much better our belief systems would be if we didn't feel like we had to be right about every little thing, but we just found the playfulness in the text. That's why I try to focus so much in the podcast on the little nuances that you find in the original languages that don't always carry over so well into English, because it shows how much fun the authors had with writing the text and how much they want us to have fun as we read it. I think another thing we can bring into this discussion is that children back then would not have been seen as significant a part of society as we view them today. When Jesus said that these people had to, the Greek word is strapho, they had to turn around to become more like children again, he was inviting them to be the least in the society, to move past this idea in religion where it's all about me and my tribe and we have the one right way and everyone else should believe like us and we have to convince you to be like us and we need that privilege in our community or even our country. Jesus is calling us to move past all of that into a religion that can just be. You know, when you're an adult, everything has a purpose. There's always another thing to do. But as a kid, sometimes things just are. You don't have a reason for why you're playing a certain way or doing something. You're just doing it because you can. There is a beautiful simplicity in that I think is what Jesus was trying to get at. There's a psychiatrist named Thomas Zaz who had some thoughts that he wasn't talking about this passage, but I think it's really relevant. He said, "Every act of conscious learning requires the willingness to suffer an injury to one's self-esteem. That's why young children, before they're aware of their own self-importance, learn so easily, and why older people, especially if vain or important, cannot learn at all." And if I have ever heard anything that describes the fundamentalism I grew up in, it's that right there. Old people who are vain and self-important and who can't learn anything because they can't possibly be wrong. We have the right way. With this verse, Jesus is calling you to move past that mindset and to have childlike faith. faith that allows for questions, faith that allows for fun, faith that doesn't require someone to be right all the time, and perhaps most importantly, a humble faith that is willing to take a hit to self-esteem if it means we learn something. That's childlike faith.